Welcome into the Altar Live Show, and it's great to be here with you today. I'm Andy.
And I'm Maeve.
Hello, Maeve. How's your week been?
It's been great, Andy. How is yours been?
You know what, Maeve? It's been a week full of weirdness and shooting for Christmas things because Christmas is like 5 weeks away, 6 weeks away.
That's insane.
I know. Okay, let's talk about it, because in the church world, at least, and many of you that are watching this show will be able to resound with this, but in the church world, the Christmas season, we start planning in I think we started in July this year. We're a decently large church, and so we have to start planning like ahead of time to make sure everything works. And so we started planning in July. October hit, and we were talking about things, and then all of a sudden November hit, and it was like, oh my gosh, where are we gonna get all the time for these things? And I had to shoot 20 different Advent videos. And so that was me talking into a camera and talking about Advent for 20 little social media spots, and we had Christmas music and yada yada yada. Anyway, nobody cares about that. The big question of the day, Maeve, is this.
Yes.
Speaking of Christmas, I need you to give me a top 3 list of your favorite Christmas songs, starting from number 3.
Okay. I mean, this is probably one of the hardest questions you've ever given me. But
Okay.
and just a disclaimer, if you see me on the street one day and you hold me accountable and say, "Are these really your 3 favorite songs?" I'll probably give you a different answer.
Sure.
But
It's a
these are
daily
the
thing.
ones
It's a
these are
feeling.
the ones yeah, these are the ones that are, like, percolating in my mind lately. I'm excited to listen to them. Okay. Number 3, we are at The Christmas Conga by Cyndi Lauper. It's kind of a deep cut.
Hold on, I got a flourish that I can play in there too. There you go.
I love it.
It is a deep cut, and when you were talking about it earlier, I was like, Christmas Conga. Oh yeah, that one. It sounds like it's from Miami.
Yeah, it's a really fun time, and it kind of bleeds into the New Year, so you can listen to it,
Sure.
after Christmas.
Sure. It's a conga.
Yeah, totally. All season long. Number 2, Sleigh Ride with the Ella Fitzgerald version.
I like it. Yes. Awesome. Also a good
Love
one.
Ella.
Yep.
And then number 1 is Man with the Bag, but the K-Star, like, old version.
Oh. I gave you the organ.
I can't be doing any covers.
Yeah.
I can't be doing any covers with that song.
I love it. I gave you the
K-Star.
organ punch that time. Oh my gosh. Those are deep, Maeve. Like, I'm looking at my list going, I have boring ones compared to you. So I do.
I just love I love, like, the older sounding stuff. I mean, Cyndi Lauper's a little out there.
Sure.
But, Ella Fitzgerald, K-Star,
Yeah.
Andrew Sisters, Bing Crosby.
Yeah, totally.
That's
totally.
what I want.
Let's go. And that's traditional Christmas. That's where we sit. Okay, I'm going to do my 3 real quick, and then we've got a very special guest we need to bring into the program.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Yes. Number 3, for me, Christmas time is here. The Vince Guaraldi, like Charlie Brown Christmas, like that's
good.
it. It's that
So
nothing says Christmas like me putting on the vinyl album that I have of Vince Guaraldi, the Vince Guaraldi trio, and just relaxing.
That's just dreamy.
I know, and it's the whole album is just so good.
So good.
Number 2, Oh Holy Night, any version of Oh Holy Night, but specifically
Beautiful.
there was one by this guy called David Crowder, and he mashed up kind of the Hallelujah chorus from Leonard Cohen, who's like an atheist, and then it's cool. So let me play the imaging. Yeah, there we go. Oh Holy
Love
Night.
it.
And then number 1 for me is O Come, O Come Emmanuel. Any moody Christmas, just like it starts, and I love as when I was a worship pastor for a very long time, it was one of my favorite songs to lead because it starts real minor and real mellow, and then it grows and grows and grows, and then it finishes with this like rah, and that's
so good.
That's Christmas. So yeah, real quick, what are your thoughts on Baby It's Cold Outside?
It's really hard. I mean, it could be a really heated debate. I flip-flop. One day I'm like, can we just listen and enjoy this song? And then other times, if I'm listening to the lyrics too closely that day, I'm like, this is problematic. Yeah, I know. I used to love that song, and that scene in Elf. I just love that scene. So it's just like just like a really heated, hard topic. But I'm glad you brought it up.
Oh, thanks, Maeve. Full disclosure, Maeve brought it up, and I was just hosting the show. So there we go. Speaking of hosting the show, we have a very, very special guest that we want to bring on. First time, I think, ever doing anything live with us on the internet. Justine Morris. Justine, how are you today?
Hey guys, I am really in the Christmas mood now.
Fantastic.
Because of all of I wrote them down. I'm like, these are all the songs I need to add to my playlist.
So do you have a 3-to-1, or do you have just a top Christmas song of all time? Or is this a real Sophie's
I'm all
choice?
about Christmas.
Okay.
No, I'm all about Christmas. All the songs, all the feels. I'm from Australia, and the US and Australia don't have a lot of holidays in common. And so for me, Christmas is like all the feels.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm into it. Awesome. Well, Justine, we had a specific kind of reason for bringing you on, but first and foremost, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about you and kind of your ministry and where you're living. You referenced you're from Australia, so that's where the accent's from. Just tell us all about you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me today, guys. I'm really excited. This is fun. I love that we're doing the digital connect. I am from Australia, born and raised. I moved to the US 23 years ago.
Wow.
I came out as a 23-year-old. So there you go. I'm
Wow.
46.
You dated yourself
And
there.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of ages.
No, that's good.
Yeah. So yeah, I moved to Seattle, Washington. That's where I live. And I came out here really with a dream on my heart. I felt like the Lord said that I was a missionary to the American church. I had no idea what that meant, because why would the American church need a missionary? It's just, that feels backwards almost, you know. But having been here, I've been an associate pastor in a Foursquare Church in Bellevue, Washington for 20 plus years. And now I'm a digital church planter. And as we watch the culture of the US shift and change, as cultures do, and seeing how the US church has to come and serve the community and bring the good news of Jesus, now I understand what it meant, that God was bringing me here to be a part of this really amazing season of the church. It's exciting.
So the Foursquare Church, for those that do not know the denomination, can you kind of give us a brief 30-second overview of what the Foursquare Church is?
Yeah, Foursquare is a Bible-believing, Jesus-following, Great Commission-focused movement. I was drawn to Foursquare because of the really kind of like right down the middle, balanced doctrines. And I didn't know about Foursquare in Australia, but I ended up at a Foursquare church over here. And yeah, if it's in the Bible, we believe it. And if it's about Jesus, we're all for it.
I love it. What's your role right now with the church? So you said you're a digital church planter. What does that entail?
So yeah, I'm a digital church planter within our Foursquare movement. And that's my like ministry role, I guess. My tent making / paid job is I also work for our denomination. So I am with the Foursquare Northwest District, and we serve our pastors and churches in Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming.
Wow.
That's our region. So we have 6 districts in the US, and we have churches and movement projects all over the world. And so I get to serve around 300 churches in the Northwest District. And my role is communications and events. So we're all about providing support, leadership training, discipleship tools, anything to move forward the good news of Jesus, basically, in the Northwest, the best part of America.
I was going to say, like, I have had I live in Florida, but I'm from Michigan. And I've lived in New Jersey and Atlanta, and I've always had a longing in my heart, ever since I was a boy, to move to Seattle for whatever reason. Don't know why. I had a Seattle Supersonics hat when I was younger, and I've just always wanted to move there. So I'm very jealous of you. I am also intrigued, and we had another list of questions, and I want to tickle this one real quick. You talked about being a missionary to the U.S., and there are a number of people I can think of that actually I've heard that from, and I almost wonder what that feels like. I'm thinking of guys like John Tyson. I'm thinking of Mark Sayers. I'm thinking of those guys, but I'm also thinking of a couple of others that I know personally. Is that a movement that is coming out of Australia, or is that just a kind of one-off, the Holy Spirit telling you guys to go?
Yeah, I think it's just God putting it in people's hearts. You know, it definitely wasn't something I'd really considered before it happened in my own life. Like I said, it feels almost like a turning of the tables, because the US was one of the main countries that sent mission workers around the world. But I think what we're understanding now is we become more of a global human race versus, country bound. Because of technology, now we're more of a globally connected human race, that we can see how much culture mixes with faith and can really kind of affect what happens. And I'm seeing God kind of move cultural change agents into all of the countries of the world, honestly. It's not just the US, it's Australia too, it's all the countries that we need to learn from other cultures. So we're not kind of narrow-minded or have blinders on around how much culture impacts faith, and that we would really be citizens of eternity, not citizens of specific lands.
Yep.
So I think that's part of what God's doing. That's just the sense I have.
That's really good.
That's beautiful.
I almost want to write that down. Citizens of eternity, not citizens of a land. It's we could go. I would love to talk your ear off and kind of plumb the depths a little bit about cultural Christianity and kind of, growing up in Michigan and Florida, we didn't see that, but I moved to the Atlanta area, and oh boy, I saw that for 7 years or 6 years as I was being a worship pastor, and it's one of those things that I would love to impress upon people. But anyway, that's me. Maeve, you wanna kind of take us off here?
Yeah, sure. We just wanted to start off with asking you, how did you hear about Altar Live? I'm always so interested how people find us, and the stories behind that.
Yeah, well, I'm wonderfully connected with Stadia Church Planting.
Okay.
As a digital church planter, I was looking for others who had the same crazy dreams. You always are like, did God give me this dream, or am I like making this up? And so I don't actually even remember how I connected with Stadia, but they have a digital church planting focus that I was able to be a part of and connected with Jeff Reed. And it was during our training time with them that they were exploring different tech tools available. And so, I heard about Altar Live in a meeting, and I'm one of those people. Do you guys do this too, where in a meeting somebody suggests a book or a website and you're like on the side?
Yes.
Like,
100%.
check that out.
100%.
Yeah.
Amazon is my friend during those meetings.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing. I was like, ooh, let me see. I want to see what Altar Live's doing. And, I was an associate pastor of a local church during the beginning of COVID times. And actually, let me change that. I was in Australia when COVID began.
What?
That's actually what happened.
Did you get stuck?
I did get stuck in the,
my gosh,
with my family in Australia. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Super wonderful.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we actually, some of the first cases hit the US like 2 days before we flew out. And, Seattle was kind of one of the first places that had it reach our land, So we got on a plane as planned. And then we were in Australia, and our flight back got canceled. And then the next one got canceled, and the next one got canceled. And anyway, while we were in Australia, we kept having our small group. I kept helping to lead our church from a totally different time zone. We did Passover online with our life group. Kids kept doing school. My husband works for a nonprofit in the US, and so he kept working. I kept working. We all just kept doing it. And it was kind of in that space where I thought, man, Paul was under house arrest, and he used the communication tool of his age, which was letter writing, and we got the New Testament out of it. He had no idea he was writing it for us.
Wow.
And if he had said, I'm just going to wait until we're back in person, I'm just going to stop leading these young churches until I can be back in person. And it just kind of hit me. If he had done that, like, we wouldn't have what we have.
Amen.
And so as we lean into the communication tools of our age, whether we're under literal house arrest or figurative house arrest, or whether we're in COVID shutdown, or whether we just are in different regions, being a global church is possible now. And finding connections and affinities and similar values is easier via tech tools. Anyway, so we kind of just leaned into that. My husband and I started talking. He works in broadcasting and creative agency work, and so he has all the skills around digital. And then, and because we'd already been running our church online, so when we got back to the US, Seattle was in lockdown, and we immediately embraced digital church. And so we were using church online, Facebook groups, YouTube. I mean, we just were trying all the things. But constantly we had this feeling, it's like we're sending out one-way communication, but we don't know how our people are.
Yeah.
And we'd get calls into the church saying, I'm feeling disconnected and I want to be connected again. And I'm like, well, do you have the phone numbers of your friends that you used to sit with on Sundays? You always had your one seat in church. And so, at our church, we called it our chair neighborhood. Like, do you know who sits in your chair neighborhood? Like, do you have each other's numbers? And we just didn't. Like, there was no point. I'll see you next Sunday.
Yep.
Or, so, feeling that tension as a pastor in a local church that couldn't meet physically really kind of pushed me into that digital space and wanting a more dynamic two-way medium. So it wasn't just consumer pushing content, not knowing if anyone was really on the other end, and are they okay? They could be watching, but do they feel connected and cared for and seen? And how can we be a body of Christ with all of our gifts in action if it's a one-way communication?
Amen.
So anyway, that's kind of what pushed us into exploring digital. Ultra Live, then, when I was in that meeting and I was kind of looking at what Ultra Live did, it was like all of my hopes in reality. The way Ultra Live has combined different tech kind of environments and how you can, and they're seamless kind of in and out of those. For me, it was like, this is it. This is next level. This is what digital churches need, whether it's a both and, physical digital, where you just have a digital campus or you're streaming your Sunday service, or whether it's a digital only expression. Like, to me, Ultra Live is making things possible that we really, really need. And that's that personal kind of connection.
Great
that
answer.
Was a lot, guys.
No, that was great. Like, I'm ready. I'm just sitting at your feet listening right now, so we're good.
I'm enthralled.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about this.
I know, it's awesome. Well, and here's the thing, and we'll get to the other question in a second, but so going back to what you said about Paul in the tent and kind of being under house arrest, the problem that happened during COVID is our culture, which was already sitting on a knife edge anyway, especially in the West, was further striated, I guess is the word you can see, or further split down the middle, where you had the people that were just ready to kind of go over the edge with church, with work, with everything. And so you're seeing the quote unquote great resignation, not just in jobs, but in schools, in friend groups, in family meetings, in everything. People are just one way. Or you almost have the other side, which is us, and we're pointing back at that, going, no, come back. Like, we've got different tools. It's way different now. It feels different. Like, we know what we're doing a little bit more. Our church, when we had to shut down for COVID, we shut down for a good 6 months, and we went from a staff of 100 to a staff of 10, and we were working 60 hours a week, nonstop, broadcasting, 4 and 6 times live a day, trying to keep the church connected. And just like you, what we found was if we just sat on our hands, we weren't doing our job as the church. And so that's actually what led me into Ultra Live during my own pastor stuff, and that's a whole other journey. But the idea that us just sitting there and saying, like, well, I don't know, we can't have Bible studies anymore. Sorry, guys. Well, I guess nobody's going to meet Jesus anymore. Sorry, because we can't open the doors to our big giant church. Like, that's stupid. So I commend you, Justine, for doing all of that work when you're 13 hours or however many hours ahead it was, 9 hours ahead or 8 hours ahead or whatever. How did you do that, by the way, especially with the kids in school? Did you have to just stay up all night?
No, it's actually really great. Around noon Seattle time is 6 a.m. in my hometown, which is the Gold Coast, Australia. So we were able to do like the afternoon chunk of everything. So I was not awake for Sunday services, but I was able to do, the swing shift, if you will, which is honestly, that's when most people are available.
Correct. And that's the important part too, is we forget. I saw somebody posting about something, but out of the 100, the famed 168 hours a week, if you're thinking that you're only going to meet Jesus by spending one, you got to think Jesus spent over 3,000 hours with his disciples, and they barely cut the mustard when it came to being a disciple. What's to think that the 1 hour? And so you're doing the important work. You're doing the 167 hours of work, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a digital concern about how are people engaging.
Hmm.
I think this is an in-person concern as well,
Yep.
because if we still stick to kind of a lecture format where the action happens on stage and we have people just participating through consumption, whether that's in person or online, we know because of learning styles and educational research and all of the data around those things that people don't retain things they only hear.
Yes.
People also need to be speaking it out, putting it into practice. And so I think in some ways the gift of COVID is that it's pushed us as faith communities to say, what does discipleship really look like?
Yep.
And is that Sunday church time frame and focus, is that the best version of what we can be? And I think the one thing that digital affords us or gifts us is that we can be a dispersed church living on mission as our highest goal. And then, yes, a gathered church that worships together, that is a taste of heaven.
Amen.
Like that is a literal taste of heaven. But is that the most important thing that we're to do each and every week? And if some churches do that, maybe other churches can do it differently. There isn't one way to look like the church. Yahweh prescribes a lot of things. How you do church is not one of the things he prescribes.
Yep.
And so we get to express that culturally. And I think that's the shift we're seeing in the US right now. It's like COVID, cultural issues, but also a change of generation. And the kind of church that was the best expression for the boomer generation, it was awesome. I grew up in that. It doesn't have to be the best expression for future generations. And in a lot of ways, shouldn't be. We shouldn't hold on to our methods. We need to hold on to mission. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the more I've been talking to people who have started, going online with their ministry, they talk about how they really just had to throw the rule book kind of out the window when it came to reimagining how to run things, because you have to get creative and you have to really encourage that engagement. And as you said, it can't be just a content stream because you don't have that physical aspect of the room where you're all together. I can nudge someone here or whisper something interesting about the sermon there. You really have to work hard so people are actually growing together in community.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's the my favorite part of Ultra Live is the rows in the auditorium space, because you get to do that. I mean, my husband does not like sitting next to me in movies because I want a dialogue about what's happening. And so we like to take extra friends with us. He'll sit, actually, true story. We went to a movie, this is years ago. And the group, we sat down and then we were like, oh, these are not the best seats. Let's all get up and move. And my husband was like, I'm not going with you. That's ridiculous. I'm just going to stay here. And he watched the movie in separate rows and the rest of us moved up high. And the whole time I was like, are you coming? And he's like, no, I'm not coming. Afterwards, he said, that was the best movie ever. I didn't have to listen to you guys talk.
Oh my gosh.
So, in a church setting, you've got some people who just want to sit and soak it in. Then you've got other people that are like, I'm a verbal processor. I got to talk about this.
Yep.
I do, friends we used to text each other in church. That was a good point, and now Ultra Live allows you to do that. And I just think it's great. Anyway, I'm a fan of Ultra Live. Which
Cool.
is why, so, I learned about it with Stadia, and then I started a new role with the Foursquare District. And one of my main tasks is to plan an annual leadership conference for our region. This year we had 1,150 leaders and pastors at our conference.
Wow.
And we had 150 join online in Ultra Live.
Awesome.
And so, so anyway, we wanted to talk about this today can I just keep
we were going to get there
talking about it? Do you
eventually.
want to ask me?
I was just
Yeah.
I'm fascinated when it comes to all the rest of the stuff. But yeah, let's actually talk about the actual thing we should actually be talking about here, and that's the conference and and kind of the things around this conference. So you said you had 150, 120, 150 people online?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so what happened is, as we kind of, we're in a region, Washington and Oregon. So Oregon was where our host venue, our host church was, Beaverton Foursquare.
Mm-hmm.
They're a wonderful church. But in Oregon and Washington, we've probably been in the most kind of shut down regions as far as COVID restrictions, which as a family, I'm a mama with kids, I'm fine with that. I wanted to keep them safe, And so, but because our district spans Wyoming and Montana and Idaho, it was like, how do we bring people in safely, honoring the leaders of the area, honoring our host church's relationship with, the local government that they support, and how do we do that well? And so one of the things we really leaned into was we want to do that by having a digital as well as in person, just as an option. And in all of the experiments we do, this is something that we talk about a lot in Stadia Digital, is version 1 is better than version none.
Yep.
And if people watching today, you're thinking, well, do I want to do a digital expression of something? Bring your expectations way down, because your first version isn't going to be perfect. It is a wild experiment. We are pioneers. We're forging into jungle. We don't know what we're doing, and that's the digital space. It's an exciting adventure, but you just set a small goal and try that. You got to move it's just like American football. You got to move the ball down the field incrementally sometimes if you can't do that big play. So, our district team, my boss, our district supervisor, is a wonderful visionary supporter. And so he said, let's do it. Let's just try it. We had no idea if anyone would come in person, if anyone would come online, because COVID times. Nobody knows anything right now. This is, it doesn't matter if you've done things in the past. This year it's different.
Right.
And we also didn't know if Oregon would shut down and force us to be fully online. So we had plans and backup plans and backup plans for the backup plans. Like we had all the, and then we had like go, no go windows. Like this is the date that we're going to make decisions. And if, so anyway, it was fun and wild planning a big conference during COVID. So during this process, when we decided let's do online, we started exploring like a large Zoom account that allows you to do conference. But then I heard about Ultra Live, and so I did some compare and contrast and worked with you guys. Loved working with Stephanie and the other Andy. We had lots of conversations around like, what are we trying to achieve and what tech tool achieves that goal best?
So you were planning the conference, but we want to know how that process was like getting your team together, because hosts and greeters are just an essential part of making an Ultra Live event run smoothly. So how did you prepare them for a conference of this size?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think because this is such an innovative space, I think partly you want to work out what your goals are and then build a team around your goals. And so we knew that we would be needing to train people on how to feel okay within a new tech tool. So that was the first, like we wanted to make sure we had team members focused on that. We also wanted to be able to replicate things that were happening in person with an online team. So if you're doing a conference that is both physical and digital, and something happens in the room, you want to try and work out how to have that online as well. And so we had a prayer team in the room. So we had a prayer team online. So, anytime there was a call of like, if you want to come forward and receive prayer from our prayer team, and online, your host will tell you how to connect with the online prayer team. So it's working out how to have that connection point. Anything that happens in the room, double it for online. Make sure you have a way to express it online. It can be different. Like in room, you can say, hey, turn to somebody beside you and just tell them what God's doing. Online, you can say, hey, make sure you jump into a row and chat about it. But you could also give the direction, hey, grab your phone out and text somebody. So you can, it doesn't have to be the identical, like reproduce in person online, because that doesn't always work. But it's just really thinking about, whatever content you're driving in the room, how can it be meaningful in a digital space as well? So that was the first part. It's like we wanted to know our what's, our whys, and then we could work out the who, those components. And so what we ended up doing was adding some extra digital sessions that weren't part of the regular schedule. So our morning session started at 9 a.m. 20 minutes before 9 a.m., we had a 20-minute digital show that was run with a dynamic anchor. His name's Jordan. He's a digital pastor in Montana at Faith Chapel. And he came into our conference site, and we had a studio set up, and so he could broadcast, and he really engaged with people. We had a screen on the wall so he could engage with everybody that was in the Ultra Live space. And so it really was almost like a beautiful version of Zoom where you've got a video suite instead of him sitting at a computer.
Right.
But we also talked about the fact that you could have hosted that from anywhere. He could have been in Montana. And that was our backup plan for, COVID. It's like, well, if we can't get our team into Oregon, we can still do everything. We could have our keynote speakers join from wherever they are. We could have all of our hosts. We even talked about embracing the digital reality that when people join your digital event, they're probably not sitting in a quiet space prepared to participate. They could be in their cars. They could be like, walking the block. They could have
kids are running around. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you kind of have to embrace that. And so we even talked about having a session where our host would be in their car joining Altar with their phone.
I love
just
that.
to say, hey, we're all in this space. And I think that's part of thinking about doing a digital conference, whether it's fully digital or both, is embrace what's happening. Don't pretend, don't have expectations that people are going to clear their schedules. If they're not in the room, they're in real life. And how can you embrace that? So we did have that host. We did have chat hosts as well. The term we use is content echoes. So you want to have, chat hosts that can hear something and go, that was great. And you content echo what's being presented.
That's a great name.
I love that name.
Yeah. So it's, just support. And you can have that in advance. If you've got speakers that can supply your notes, you can pre-work out your content echoes, but it's also really good to just do it on the fly. Like that point really stood out or that resonated. And especially in a chat setting, to have people like asking questions. Well, what was your answer to that? Because again, we want to move from content pushing to engagement conversations. So really kind of thinking that through. And honestly, I prayed for God to bring a team in for us because we did not have an established team. Running a conference in a denomination, it's kind of different than running a Sunday where you're like, I know my people in my church. I'll ask these people to be involved. I didn't know. So I just reached out to churches and said, do you have a digital pastor? And we basically just recruited from scratch. We did do trainings in advance, and we wanted to keep our why and our goals as our forefront all the time. So our goal as digital hosts, regardless of the role, prayer, chatting, or an on-face host or on-screen host, like with their face, that all of the goals is to make people feel seen, wanted, and connected. We had this amazing testimonial come out of one of our prayer times. So a pastor on our prayer team, Chris Pepler, so he was joining the conference from Everett, Washington. The conference was in Oregon, and he was connecting with one of our creative access workers in a country that I can't name. And so they were joining our conference from around the globe. the sun was setting here, the sun was rising there, and Chris and this worker got to pray together for the globe. And Chris said it was like God lifted us up off the planet, and we got to have his view of his gospel surrounding the world. And when you have those kinds of experiences, you're like, man, who wouldn't want to be digital?
Yeah.
Like, why would we not want to add this to what we're doing? Because it lifts us up to see things from a higher perspective. It's just really cool.
Oh, Justine, that's amazing.
That's beautiful.
What was the overall response to the conference, both from people in-house, like if they understood that there was something digital going on, and then from the online attenders as well?
Yeah, it was really great for people who participated online with us. Some of them were able to do one session or multiple sessions, but in general, they said, we're just so grateful to be able to be connected, even though we couldn't be in person. And I think that, that's the goal, is that regardless of whether it's a financial constraint, time constraint, a lack of a babysitter, or our bivocational leaders, people who are, not able to take vacation, to go to a conference, anything like that. Like, it doesn't matter the reason. It enabled people to join and be part of it. And I think as a culture, we've prioritized in person, like it's the plan A and then digital's plan B. I just don't see that at all. I think digital is plan A. In person, plan A. Let's just, like, they're all good. And by having somebody, moving something to online, you're not lessening the in-person experience. You're expanding your reach. I think we had some really great feedback from one of our speaker couples, especially when we were prepping for their session. I got to share the vision of why we would want to be digital as well as in person, and they just loved it. They were like, wow, we really see that vision. So they actually crafted their session to be both digital and physical.
Wow.
And they purposefully had reflection times, breakout times, questions and topics, and they really changed how they would have presented in person because of the digital component. And they just felt like it actually benefited their in-person presentation because of thinking beyond in person. So, and they asked me, they're like, will you just give us a script? We don't want to have to remember to say what we need to say. And it worked so well.
That's
I
awesome.
just read my little prompts that when you say this in person, say this online. And I think, that's the one thing when pastors say, well, I'm looking forward to not have to do the digital anymore. Now that we've got people back in the room, I'm just really looking forward to that. And I've been in lots of conversations around this because of my role in our district and as a digital planter, that I'd say, why would you give up the reach? Why would you give that up? It really doesn't cost you anything to just lift your eyes to a camera and say, good morning, we're so excited that you're with us. Like, it doesn't cost you anything.
Yep.
I think the other tip that I would give for digital presentations, if you've got people in the room, you're never going to forget there are people in the room. If you're standing on a stage and you're looking at real people in a room, you're not going to forget them, but you will forget the people on camera. You just do. And so I asked our presenters to consider the in-person people to be more like a studio audience supporting a digital broadcast.
That's great.
And then front load, say hello to the camera first, say hello to the people in the room second. Because online, you do feel FOMO. You do feel like you're not thought of. And so, to lift up just that moment, it's just a moment, where you say good morning to everyone that's joining us online around the globe, wherever you are. We're so excited that you're with us. And if you're in the room, welcome. Like, you did it. You're good.
Yep.
And then you can,
So one of the pre-roll questions that we had for you was going to be, what are you doing as a content creator to kind of adapt your presentation to that? And so you very deftly answered that without us ever having to ask the question. So good job, Justine. I guess the second part of that though is when you are directing. So this is going to be for everybody that is currently thinking about using Ultra Live or is right now and is having those same battles that we all are having right now. And I call it a battle, and it's not really a battle. It's just conversations that we're having with pastors and content creators and leaders and teachers that they're not necessarily against the idea of digital. It just comes off that way to our type of people that are so kind of caught up in it because they're just uncomfortable with it because they don't know how to do it. What kind of tips would you give to those people using Ultra Live that are having those conversations with their leaders and content creators?
Yeah, I think that the digital world is awkward. I think you just have to embrace that. It's not what we're used to. And
I want to press that real quick because awkward how, and I'm gonna put a pin in that because I've got a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 12-year-old, almost 12-year-old, and it's not awkward for them. And so when I sit in a studio and I
right.
talk to the camera on a Sunday morning and I'm talking to the digital campus and saying this, that, or the other, they don't think it's awkward. They think it's more awkward to have a pastor in a room talking to them. So can you explain that just a little?
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. If for people that grew up in a digital age, it feels really normal. Like I'm at the bottom of Gen X. I had a Commodore 64
Hey, I had
when I
one
was
too.
about 10.
Oh, I was 30.
So good.
I'm 38. My dad programmed video games for them, but I had it too. It was amazing.
Nice. Right? And so prior to that, the generation before that didn't grow up with tech at their fingertips like that. And so I think we are just used to being humans with humans in a physical space. And that's a real comfort zone, especially for people that have been leading churches and are maybe looking into the future saying, how do I lead in a space that if you have the mindset that in person is best, it's going to be an awkward transition. And I think as a preacher, I love preaching to a room of people because I adapt the message based on feedback and I pivot throughout the time to see what the Lord is doing. And, very, very interactive. Preaching online just to a live stream where I did not have instant feedback from people was a very awkward experience for me. And I think that's what I'm talking about. It's like, if you're used to one way, it feels awkward to try it and do it another way. I think that it's not something we can shy away from. Just because it's awkward doesn't mean it's bad or wrong or you shouldn't be doing it.
You're right.
It's developing those new skills. And so I think as you're leaning in, if people are saying, I want to explore digital, but I just don't know where to start and I feel awkward in that space, my advice would be, you just got to start trying it. That's it. Version 1 is better than version none. You've got to take those baby steps forward. And I have this sense that our generation in the digital space is a lot like David and Solomon. David pulled together the materials that Solomon would then build with. And I'm leaning into the digital space because I believe my kids and my grandkids, the pastors of the future generations, will be so deeply in the digital space. And I'm prepping the way. So I want to work out how to do it well, work out how to engage with people, learn from mistakes, try things, try again, because it's not like we're just going to wake up one day and be like, we know the perfect solution to all of the digital needs. And even with Ultra Live, you guys are building it as we fly it. I love getting your emails. It almost feels daily where you're like, bug fixed, new thing added, here we go. And I know you have a development trajectory. So you are, intentionally planning, but also we're building it as we fly it. And I think to really encourage people, you just need to start trying. don't expect 1,000,000 people to jump on the first time you do a digital thing. Ask 3 people to be involved. You may get 2 or even 1 out of those 3, but you tried it, you got feedback, try again. That to me, that's what it is. It's like experiment, try again, rejigger, try again. Because we're the Davids and the Solomons need us to gather the tools, the know-how, the blueprints, that kind of stuff.
I love it. Man, you have run through my heart with a million different tiny daggers, all of a good fount of knowledge in those things. Maeve, anything that we missed here that you wanna query Justine on?
I mean, I think you just hit every nail on the head. I'm in awe. I honestly could talk to you about this like whole digital church and engagement for hours because you weave such beautiful biblical truths into it that I think it's sometimes hard for us to kind of take a step back. And, we always have to return to the mission. Why are we doing this? And just what you said was beautiful. And for us to kind of keep that in mind as we, move forward will always be good to go back to the mission.
Absolutely. Well, I'm pulling the music up here because that means it's time for us to end the Altar Live show. Justine, we are so thankful that you were able to join us today. We are so thankful.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we would love to have all your information, all of Justine's information, all of her church information. Everything is going to be located in the show notes and the comments below. Justine, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Maeve, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.